Weapons in StarCraft are, for the most part, pretty versatile in their usage. Of course, there's guns that work better for certain aspects and others that do like shit in others, but they're all the same thing, a tool to make things dead with. You can do it effectively or shittily, but you'll get there eventually. Armor, on the other hand, offers no such respite. You can either get it right or get fucked. There's some wiggle room in all things there is when you speak in the most strict of terms, but that wiggle room is so small, in most cases, you're just choosing with your heart rather than with your brain. Choosing a new armor set can be a pretty tough decision. There's so many of them, and many seem to accomplish similar things. If you're a newbie, you might not be able to glean the true value of some of these statistics and end up choosing wrong for what you actually wanna do, which is why, in this guide, we'll take a look at the master tier armors of StarCraft. I'll lead you by the hand and help you make the most informed purchase possible. There's suits that I won't mention since just getting them represents a massive commitment to the game. This is shit like the Albatross suit or the ZIVCAS M2C, and these suits aren't easily acquired unless you're already a veteran. I'll keep my tips focused on master suits to help people who don't have the first idea what to do. Think of it as a tutoring session, your course on the basics of StarCraft armor ash. With all that preface being done with, there's something we need to talk about. Before we start, we need to talk numbers. I won't do too much of this during the actual recommendations, at least not in an in-depth manner, so if you're not down to hear me talk about multiplications and shit, skip to this point in the video. There's plenty of information here, but the main categories I will be concerning myself with are defensive properties. These ones determine your protection whenever you're actually taking damage from something. Let's say that you've got a jacket on. This provides only 5 bullet resistance, so we grab your base health, which will always be 100, add 5 to it, and multiply it by your current vitality percentage, which is 100%, but can be increased or decreased with artifacts. This is something important to keep in mind. The percentage can go up or down, but the flat number to the left remains constant. With a final result of 105, this means that while wearing a jacket, you will die after taking 105 damage points from bullets. From this calculation, Stalzone then figures out your percentage of protection. This is why taking anomalous damage in combat suits demolishes you, while doing so in a Saturn barely manages to tickle. I know this is all very complicated, but imagine it like this. Say you're hit by a bullet that deals 100 damage, and you got no armor, so you die because you only have 100 HP. This means that your bullet resistance at that moment is 0%, right? Then, if you put on a suit that gives you 100 bullet resistance, making your effective health 200, that same bullet now takes 2 shots to kill you, making your bullet resistance 50%. In that same vein, if say, you put on a suit that gives you 300, giving you 400 effective HP, now that same bullet needs 4 shots to kill you, which means each bullet deals 25% damage, which means you've got 75% bullet resistance. This is why the jump from a jacket to a striker feels massive, but from that point on, you can find yourself disappointed when every further tier isn't as massive of a jump. Diminishing returns is the term. As a general rule of thumb, around 400 bullet resistance is where your interest for this statistic should taper off. Not only will increasing it beyond this number be difficult, but the return would be extremely minimal. I'll probably say some shady shit later about how speed is actually just as, if not more important than bullet resistance, and this is why I say such a thing. Bigger numbers are better, sure, but after a certain point, you start compromising movement speed in exchange for increasingly diminishing returns. And then there's infection protection. This one's easier to figure out. Each 100 protection points grants you access to that tier of an infected area. See this little number? If it says 1, you need 100 protection against that type of infection. If it says 2, you need 200. If it says 3, then 300, so on and so forth. This isn't up for debate, by the way. You can't sneak into a tier 4 area with 399 protection. You either have it or you don't. This is where artifacts like the E-Leech Lamp, Leech, Lemna, and Red Crystal come in handy, since they grant infection protection at a cheap price to those of you who wanna go where your suit shouldn't typically allow you. Combat suits. This is where making your choice might seem the hardest, even though it shouldn't be. It's combat armor. You choose the one that resists bullets the most, right? Kind of. There's 3 niches here. I'll explain what they're about and you make up your mind as I describe them. For starters, the easiest to describe is the mutant hunting niche, since it only features a single set, the Beast Slayer, being the only dedicated armor for such a task unless you count Frontier's exclusive sets. If you want to dedicate yourself to killing creatures, you're shit out of luck. This is your best choice today, yesterday, and for the foreseeable future until Expo finds a way to make mutant hunting a more pervasive, entertaining, and worthwhile dedicated experience. suits. This armor is more of a tool than something you actually wear. It's good for events like Return to the Inside Out or Lyubech, where you'll get attacked by mutants the most. Unless Expo releases an operation with a majority of mutant enemies, I'd put this way down in the priority list, since it shares a spot with the Hector for the least bullet resistance without having a plus to movement speed, which is pretty important when you're hauling around all that extra weight. Plus, in late game, I've yet to meet a single mutant that couldn't be defeated by simply walking backwards while shooting. Cargo suits. Putting that sad case aside, we got the cargo suits, specializing in carrying as much weight as possible. This includes the Ace Mule, which carries the most weight, the Hector, which moves the fastest, and the CD4, which runs the longest. A lot of people might find issue with the CD4 being called a cargo suit, since seeing one instantly makes them start clapping their ass cheeks in fear, but I think this is more because of its association with quickly made ults of PvP players that quickscope everyone. Plus, it looks like a dog that got stung by a bee. Your choice should depend on accessibility. The only real difference between each of these suits is about 10 to 15 kilograms of carry weight. If you like farming loot for hours and making other players drool at the amount of junk in your trunk, go for the Ace Mule. If, on the other hand, you don't particularly care for carrying that much loot and don't mind wearing one of the weakest combat suits, the Hector is a fairly common choice. It's simple and a bit frail when compared to its brethren, but it's still a decent suit for PvE purposes. If the Hector is too weak for your taste, you don't care for carrying too much stuff, and money isn't an issue, the CD4 is your best choice. A versatile combat option for the overworld and PvP matches, its lack of any major disadvantages and increased stamina also make it the best suit to try out new and crazy artifact builds with, since you won't be compensating for anything. Lastly, the most important ones, quote-unquote, PvP suits, seeing as how having one of these seems to be a prior requisite to entering the late game stage of clan warfare. All things considered, there's no combat suit that is strictly bad for PvP. They're all meant to take bullet damage after all, but there's good suits and there's mediocre suits, so don't be surprised if other players decide to give you the criminally bombastic side eye when you show up to the clan session with a beast slayer and a backpack full of wolf tears. With the SBA acting as a bridge between the Centurion and your Megacombat armor, the most important stat you'll be trading in exchange for extra protection is movement speed, which, sure, you might think won't matter when you have 400 bullet protection, but believe you me, it will. Stalcraft PvP is just as much about being able to move away from a player as it is about resistances, and any speed below 95% might as well be painting a crosshair on you and saying, hey, please come and kill me. If you're sure you can handle yourself and plan on really fucking shit up in close quarters or with smart movement behind cover, the Megacombat armor and SBA tank are your best option, depending on how much speed you wanna sacrifice. If you're not the best at the artifact mix matching game, or simply don't know what to go with and don't have access to an SBA, choose the Centurion over your Megacombat armor. The speed debuff is much lower, and with 355 bullet res when upgraded to plus 15, only the previously mentioned suits will be able to claim better numbers. Plus, you can just bring out your knife or put on a speed build to easily compensate for the -5 to running speed. Even the lamest purple melees granting you a +6 to running speed when held. Then there's the faction exclusive combat suits, which are something like Centurion Lights or combat ready cargo suits. Depending on your faction, they grant increased combat protection while inversely reducing movement speed, but nothing too crazy. On the upside department, they also increase weapon stability, increase stamina by 20%, and grant you with 35 kilos of carry weight, which is 10 less than the Ace and Mule and 10 more than the Centurion. This means that these suits are kind of like shopping carts with blades sticking out of it, good for running around all over the place hauling a truckload of shit while still protecting you enough to not be a pushover. Do keep in mind that these suits don't nullify weapon movement speed debuffs. This means that if you're wearing the Templar and you pull out your machine gun, you'll be dealing with your suit's debuffs plus your weapons. You'll be running around 1 second, pull out your gun, suddenly you're a snail. So then, why should you get one of these? In what conditions is this a good suit to have? It can be a good artifact build suit for PvP clan wars, since you'll be able to carry more of the fairly reduced equipment you'll need, leaving you space in your artifact budget to make an insane build. It's also good if you want to farm PvP areas like inflows, mines, and Lyubech, but want something closer to the Centurion's protection than the Ace Mule's cargo capacities. Think of it like this: the cargo suits are bread balls, waiting for you to fill them. The Centurion and company are already made combat sandwiches. These suits are plain loaves of white bread, just waiting for your decision as to what exactly you want to put in them. Does that make sense? Combo suits. Providing a combination of anomalous and combat protection, there's two distinct categories here, the pure combo suits and the speedsters, but I'm getting ahead of myself. To start us off, let's talk about the wraps. A hard-to-love jack of all trades, its anomalous protection doesn't surpass the 300s, reduces movement speed, and it looks plain ugly if you ask me. This is all paid off with it being the suit that will struggle the hardest to keep you alive, granting improved stamina regeneration, bleeding resistance, decent bullet resistance at plus 15, and most importantly, periodic healing. As you might already know, Stallcraft has passive healing, which regenerates your health outside of combat but is severely stunted when taking damage. With a periodic healing stat though, you'll continue regenerating health even through combat. This is why the wraps, along with the next suit, the ZIVCAS, are what I'd call flimsy but highly specialized armors. Not only will you have the capacity to resist mid-tier anomalous zones, but while the enemy is left spamming medkits in order to keep themselves in combat, you can also spam medkits while your berry suit keeps bumping your health up. The ZIVCAS is the flimsier of the two. It even looks scrawny when compared to most other suits, but you know what they say about the quiet guys. They got the best regeneration factor, its factor being of 3% against the wraps' 2%, having less bullet and bleed resistance as a result. This difference of 1% might not sound like much, but to give you an idea, a ZIVCAS M2C also grants 3%, and that's a fairly exclusive item. Still not impressed? I don't blame you. Healing builds seem to always be getting nerfed. Just recently, percentages were 3 and 4%, and now they're 2 and 3%. There's not a lot of love for healing builds nowadays. All of this put together means that, to me at least, the wraps and JD should be fairly low in your list of priorities unless you really know what you're doing and are willing to fully commit to a healing build that might still not fully satisfy you. Then, with a larger focus on pure bullet resistant combat, there's the Rigel. Slower speed, less stamina, it's a bulky suit to handle alright, so at first sight most people fail to recognize what it's good for. Wanna take a guess? That plus 22 stability should be a good clue. The Rigel is like the Centurion of the combo line, letting you slip into anomalous areas while having more than 300 bullet resistance at plus 15. It's a bit unwieldy, but not unfeasible to use. When fighting in anomalous areas, you'll be at a massive advantage since most other combo suits and science suits don't cross the 300 points in bullet resistance. This makes it an ideal choice for noxious PvP areas like the Wild North, Lyubech, anomalous areas in subdivision battles, and the Forge Fortress, or like how Exbo insists on calling it, Puck. Are you still with me? Did your brain turn off yet? Is all of this talk about builds and statistics rotting your brain? In that case, for you my friend, I recommend the Scythian. It's easily acquired through your arms dealer if you don't want or can't get the Rigel. It doesn't deal in advantages and disadvantages, it's a pure and simple combo suit for those of you who don't like racking their brain. When it comes to choosing amongst all of these suits, you should ask yourself, 1. Do I want a specialized build suit? And 2. Do I have access to the Rigel? If your first answer is yes, go for the wraps or ZIVCAS. I'd highly advise against it as of this video's release though, since healing builds seem to be on the way out. If you'd rather go for the combat variants, accessibility should help you decide. The only real differences between the Scythian and the Rigel are about 30 bullet resistance points and lesser movement speed. If you got the pieces for it and can afford it, get the Rigel. If that speed and stamina debuff sounds like too much of a hassle, get the Scythian. If nothing here sounds convincing though, then let me introduce you to Speedsters. Just so you know, having a high speed stat is a strat that many players swear by, and with good reason. Stallcraft's combat, especially PvP, is extremely spastic and janky. This is no Rainbow Six. You'll be spraying while jumping around like you're a Silver 5 in CSGO, and it will work. Running fast when combined with low tick rate servers and in-engine lag makes avoiding gunshots and rushing people a legitimate strat which is bound to remain for a long while. All of this means that, even if weaker in terms of combat protection when compared to others, being able to run around like a spastic has kept these suits high up on the PvP combat tier list. From left to right, we go up in bullet resistance, but down in movement speed. The fastest is Rise's Hound with 12%, and the slowest is Covenant's Missionary with 9%. Even if the buff to bullet resistance isn't that large when compared to how much speed you lose, 9% movement speed is nothing to scoff at. So if your only reason not to get a Missionary or an Investigator or a Punisher is to say, oh, but Rise has the best suit, why bother? Do bother. You haven't played Stallcraft until you've seen how fucked up people get when trying to shoot at someone going at over 120 speed. If still, the reduced protection is too much for you, but you would still like a faster than most suit, we've got two options. The Albatross is something like the next logical step in the faction suits line, providing only 6% to speed, which is decent. It's the one that grants the most physical protection out of them all, while also being purchasable from the Auctionhouse. I'd recommend this one if A. You wanna skip crafting a speed suit, or B. You want to run fast but aren't ready to commit commit to getting one-shotted by anyone who owns a BSS Biclops the moment they spot a single pixel of your body. The Marten, on the other hand, is like the Albatross's twin brother who chose a different career. Granting much the same protections, its buffs are focused more on cargo capacity, plus 3 to speed, plus 35 to carry weight, improved bullet, laceration and explosive resistance, topped off with a plus 25 to stamina, makes this one the toughest speed suit, if you wanna call a plus 3 to speed a speed suit. The Marten, as of release of this video, isn't readily available just yet, but I venture to guess that it will come out in parts like most other suits after their season pass. Do I recommend it? Honestly, I don't know. Some of you might already be telling me that it can be good if you do this and this and that, but when I look at it, it just seems like a jack of all trades, master of none type of suit that does a lot of good things decently, but is mostly a suit you use to grind materials with. The Marten, along with the Hector and Antares, if you ask me, are very cute, since I associate them with newbies who must be feeling over the moon while wearing them, only to get their head blown off by a PvP fiend with a ghost rifle from right across the map. Lastly, the simplest category, science suits. The most limited category of suits to this day, Stalzone devs have worked hard to try and grant some much needed variety to the lineup, and since there's so few suits, that also means that niches are easy to identify. For starters, we got the Saturn. This is your golden standard. While being the basic choice, I'd say that to this day, the Saturn still manages to be an S-tier science suit, so long as you don't try to pretend it's anything other than that. It provides protection against anything that Stalzone can throw at you to this day. There's not a single intended area in the game you won't be able to traverse with this suit, besides Klondike, but that's part of that area's intended design. It looks cool, does its job, has so many skins it almost makes me angry, and is the closest we've got to a canon suit for every single player. And then there's the black sheep of the family, the Ganymede, the one and only science suit that can be bought from the Auctionhouse. If you ask me, this suit doesn't get the roses it deserves. That's probably because, for as convenient as it is, it's a downgraded Saturn in every single sense that matters. It can still go everywhere the Saturn can in terms of protection, but in terms of elemental damage, resistances are cut in half and it reduces your speed by 3%. In exchange, you're given more stamina, 24 kilograms of carry weight, and 8 points of bullet protection, which is a negligible advantage if you ask me. This means the Ganymede traded its scientist specialization for a bunch of random statistics that make it a jack of no trades, master of being shit. This doesn't mean that the Ganymede is a bad science suit in strict terms, it still grants you level 4 protection, but think of it like the knockoff of the Saturn, where the Saturn is Mountain Dew and Dr. Pepper, the Ganymede is Mountain Shoutin' and Dr. Bob. The only reason I'd recommend the Ganymede is if you really want to get a science suit to start grinding anomalous areas right away, or if you don't really care for the Saturn and would rather save your anomalous term for something like a speed suit or a combat suit. Do keep in mind that the Saturn is, as of today, one of the most customizable suits in the game, while the Ganymede makes you look like a recycled condom. Antares. The Antares suit, added during a Christmas event, I always thought it looked like a reinforced hockey suit. It makes you slow, increases stability, and nullifies weapon speed debuffs. The Antares is something like the Centurion of the science category, and this isn't just superficial. At plus 15, it grants 329 bullet protection, which means it's only 26 points away from protecting as much as the Centurion itself. If we talk about pure statistics, if a guy wearing an Antares fights against a guy wearing a Saturn, 9 times out of 10, the Antares guy will win, since he can take much more punishment before getting killed. But Stalzone isn't a turn-based MMO. Movement is a massive part of combat, and that's where the Antares falters, massively, reducing your speed by 7%. This means you'll be trying to make a speed build depending on your melee for travel, and during combat you'll probably still be slow enough that killing you is easy pickings. All of this keeps the Antares from being the top tier PvP suit it clearly wants to be, since for all its protections, the debuffs are where it suffers the most. Another aspect to keep in mind is that this suit grants level 4 protection against all infections except for thermal, which is left at level 3 with some leeway to upgrade it with artifacts. Then there's the cheapskates option, the Miss X Atlas. This one stands out among the rest due to the fact that it can be obtained through a questline which, while a bit hard, is not entirely impossible, especially nowadays that Lyubech has been made much more accessible. Having the same bullet resistance as a Saturn suit while only granting level 3 protection for all elements except chemical, this was clearly meant to be used in tandem with protection artifacts. This means that the Miss X is meant to be more of a band-aid solution to not having a science suit. If you don't have a red science suit yet, can't get the Saturn, Saturn and can't afford the Ganymede, do try and get this one, since you'll be much better off using the Atlas than the Malachite or the Uranus. There's also rumors of a possible upgrade going about, a massive player-led treasure hunt through a secret questline called the Chains of Decay, which not only has players working like Sherlock Holmes to figure out the clues, supposedly the very first person to complete it in the entire world will get an exclusive, one-of-a-kind, unique and irrepeatable skin. It hasn't been solved as of yet though, so until then, the Miss X Nocturne will have to remain in your dreams. Just so you know though, the Nocturne wouldn't grant level 4 protection, so if you were hoping or waiting for that to happen, you are shit out of luck. Science Faction Suits. Recently buffed to grant level 4 protections across the board, their usability has become not only a lot more feasible, but even preferable, managing to do what the Ganymede tried and failed at. All of these suits are more combat-ready versions of the Saturn. Even Rise, known for its low bullet res, protects more than a Ganymede. Like in the combo category, protection and speed are inversely related. Here, they grant lesser speeds, the higher the bullet resistance, from a 2% debuff with the Rise suit, all the way up to 5% with the Covenant suit, which means that you won't need to go insane trying to figure out a speed build to compensate for your losses. Even something as simple as a backpack full of golden primas should be enough. If you're just absolutely sick of getting killed in the labyrinth or want a better chance at surviving artifact generating in the wild north, these suits grant increased combat resistances with negligible downsides in the anomalous department. Even the Rise suit has severely increased laceration resistance, so if you keep getting killed by ghouls, this might be a good choice. Of course, since they're exclusive faction suits, this means that you're fully and wholly committing to repping your set from here on out, unless you want to pay 65 annual serum and then have a non-usable paperweight in your inventory. If you don't know whether to get one of these, ask yourself two things. Number 1, do I want a more PvP capable science suit? And number 2, am I willing to deal with the speed debuff appropriately? If you responded yes to both, get one of these suits. To end things off, if you're the type to get overwhelmed by too many options and you still don't know what to get, I'll choose for you. That should help, right? If anything, you can blame me rather than yourself if you regret your purchase. Your suit priority list should be as follows. For starters, a science suit. Here you can go with the Saturn, Ganymede, Miss X Atlas, it's whatever really. Choose depending on whether you want to spend the anomalous serum, spend the money, or if you don't give a fuck at all, just go with the Atlas. Having a science suit is extremely useful since it'll let you farm Black Detour and Reflection a lot easier. These areas aren't exactly hard to traverse or be in, so they're decent places in which to grind for your next suit. If you've got the money and don't care for the varied amount of skins that the Saturn has, go with the Ganymede. If you'd rather have plenty of skins to choose from, or simply don't have the money to spend on a Ganymede, go with the Saturn. I hear it's gonna get a cowboy motif real soon. Looks cool, huh? Second, you should get a combo suit. I'm just gonna show my bias here and tell you straight up. Get a speed suit. If you're really feeling the Albatross Interceptor, sure, get it. It protects the most out of them all, while still granting a whopping +6 to speed. But if you ask me, the official mediocre recommendation is your faction's speed suit. Clear cut, pure and simple. I personally have a Missionary and the speed is enough to make me hold on to my britches. Plus, it grants decent protection for as flimsy as it is. But that doesn't mean I don't envy the Hounds' downright reckless 12% movement speed bonus. From what I hear, the reduced protection for that much of a boost is well worth it. Lastly, a good combat suit. This can be an Ace Mule, Centurion, or Megacombat, depending on what you wanna prioritize. If you wanna do PvP and do clan warfare and session battles, go with the Centurion or Megacombat. If you don't know which one to pick between these two, go with the Centurion. If you're not interested in PvP at this point and would rather stick to PvE for the time being, the Ace Mule will let you farm plenty of substances and ferns for extended periods of time. Plus, you'll be able to tank NPC gunshots and resist mutant attacks fairly decently, all with the added bonus of not being slowed down by any speed debuffs. It's not like you'll be defenseless in PvP, of course, but you know, you could be doing better. Of course, if at any point in these steps you have access to armor that can be crafted with schematics and have no alternative in the categories it fits within, that should become your main priority immediately, since they're not that expensive, money-wise, when compared to the Auctionhouse suits, and you also won't spend any anomalous serum, giving you more wiggle room for whatever other suit or weapon you might want to craft. Of course, you'll still have to spend $1 million or $2 and a bunch of materials, but hey, you just got a master suit out of it. So stop being a little whiner. After these 3, you should feel free to do whatever you want. Get a Beast Slayer, a Raps, a Scythian, whatever. With your 3 major suit groups covered, you won't be lacking in any category, not too much at least.